I'm Abdullah Javaid, 20 years of age, and currently playing for Hanwha Villa FC. I initially reached out to Myles as I felt like my football wasn't in the place that I wanted it to. Obviously, from having been at Leicester to sort of like struggling to go like higher up, so I kind of just went to Myles, kind of looking to just to see where the best place for me to like sort of start enjoying my football was. I'd say my relationship with myself would be sort of something that I was struggling with because obviously being at a Premier League team like Leicester to sort of hitting nowhere, I was kind of I'd say I was too hard on myself thinking like, where's the next step sort of along them lines. But obviously there's so many players that sort of was in the position that I was, and a lot of players at my age sort of getting released from Cat 1 or Cat 2 academy sort of didn't play football anymore. So I feel like I was too hard on myself. And then once I'd started doing the sessions and sort of took a step back and looked at the greater things other than football, kind of made me look back at football and sort of relate them together and sort of get a better outcome when thinking about how I treat myself in life. And obviously I sort of took those same things that I learned in the sessions and put it into football, and now it's just sort of benefited me massively. I'd say the work with Miles at the start, I kind of was a bit reluctant. As I was saying, I was hard with myself, and sort of the way I was thinking about it was like I've been I've been out of football for like a long time now, so I don't think having sort of conversations is going to change anything. I kind of thought it was just me and my ability, which made me doubt it. So I did kind of then after having the conversation, I think Miles could sort of tell that I was a bit reluctant. So he kind of said, "Look, just take it with an open mind." And I sort of took that advice, and then week after week, I could kind of see myself benefiting from it, as well as obviously getting into a football team from having that sort of a lot of rejections to sort of having doing the sessions. And then the first trial I sort of get from doing the sessions, I get selected from the first training session using different techniques that I learned and sort of different things from that. And then obviously now that I'm playing football regularly, just from doing the sessions and using the things week in, week out, and I'm sort of seeing the benefit that's given me, I'd say that it was better. I'm glad that I took it with an open mind. The fact that I took that chance and sort of used it to benefit me in everyday life as well as my football, in terms of like meditation and self-talk and self-worth and realizing those kind of things. It definitely benefited me in the long run. I sort of learned a lot about myself as a footballer, and aside from football, as a person, I'd say it made me sort of take a step back and sort of appreciate what I've done. A lot of players don't even play academy football, so the fact that I can appreciate what I've done, and a lot of players like don't even have the same sort of thrive after that. So I feel like the fact that I've regained that fire within myself doing the sessions, I'd say it kind of made me realize like there's a lot more that I can give, and sort of I'm not done with football just yet. So yeah, in terms of football, I'd say I wouldn't really sort of the person to sort of have conversation with managers and things like that. I'd sort of be very reluctant and shy to do those things, but having the conversation of saying sort of making my feelings heard and sort of people understanding, maybe like you can judge me by thinking if I don't talk or if I'm not talking, people might think like I'm just not bothered or something like that. But obviously, even Miles sort of maybe could have thought that about me because I'm very quiet. But really, if I just explain to a manager how I'm feeling about a certain way in football or just in general in life, I'm sure they should be open enough to sort of make my voice heard rather than keeping my emotions bottled up. So I say it definitely made me better and more confident to sort of speak my truth and how I'm genuinely feeling, rather than making people like sort of guess me off the first impression. Because obviously I don't want it to be a wrong one, as silence can be very hard to determine as like sort of nonchalant or something like that. That's probably the last thing I'd want people to think. I've grown confidence in myself by obviously, like I say again, about me not being in that footballing environment for months and months just kind of started to take a toll on me. So I'd say it definitely made me grow in confidence. And then obviously now I'm enjoying my football. I'm thinking like, where else can I take this? Now I'm seeing maybe kids that can see my story and make them think like there's a lot of people going through things what I've went through. So maybe a younger person seeing and hearing my story make me like sort of make them think like I'm not the only one and you're not alone. Like it can be obviously getting rejected and things like this can be a dark place in football. So I'd say yeah, there's a lot of positives to take and sort of that have that resilience, not even just in football, because you're going to get rejections in maybe everyday life with a job interview or things like that. So I'd say, yeah, just a lot of the things that I learned in football, I think it's very tough that you've something that you might face in everyday life. What I enjoyed the most about it was sort of seeing the relationship build like a sort of bond that I took as an individual, rather than sort of just going through the motions and sort of having the first week of the session thinking, right, like let's just do it next week, rather than I'm kind of thinking throughout every single day, how can I benefit myself using the techniques, rather than just going day by day and sort of going through the motions and thinking just wait until next week. I think, yeah, the best thing I've done was sort of using the meditation and things like that in my everyday life, rather than like, as if I wake up in the morning and I don't have training, it doesn't mean that I can't sort of use different techniques and different things to benefit me in everyday life. If I feel tired on a normal day, when maybe if someone's going to work or something, they can use the same techniques that I use in football and they can use it in everyday life. So I would say the session wouldn't just benefit a footballer. If anything, it could benefit anyone who's sort of struggling to find their way of life, or just trying to get back on their feet, or get on their high horse where they once were or where they want to be. I'd say what I first initially wanted from it wasn't something that I really thought about, as I wasn't with an open, I sort of wanted to take it with an open mind, and I didn't really know where it would take me, to be honest. I was in between two minds of thinking that it's just going to be something that is just going to go through the motion. I'm going to have a conversation and nothing's going to change. I kind of thought that because um, I was already in quite like a state of being used to like sort of rejection, or no change being made after trying different things. So I felt like I wasn't going to get what I wanted from it. And then after the first 2 weeks of the session, I think I kind of saw um, the difference in changing my own character, and seeing me getting signed after doing 2 weeks of sessions. Like, it kind of shows, like, right now you're starting to see a change. So now I'm getting on to week 6 and week 7, and I'm still sort of benefiting, and I'm still feeling the same way. Like, right, nothing's dying down. I'm kind of going on a constant high, and I feel like, yeah, the more I just done the weeks and sort of tuned in and sort of had these conversations with how I was feeling every week, or if I had a situation, rather than before I would have sort of kept those emotions inside and sort of just left it in other days. Like, sort of when I was at Leicester, if I had a bad game, I sort of kind of shut myself out and I wouldn't talk to anyone. And when I told Myles these stories, he kind of thought like the best thing to do was to have that conversation. And now, ever since then, if I have any problems, I'll have that conversation. I feel like 100 times better after having the conversation, rather than sort of locking myself away till the next training session or the next game to make it right. Sort of thinking throughout the days, how can I make it better? How can I better myself for the next game, rather than just praying on the next game, kind of using the rest of the days until the game to sort of match the mistake I made, or to better it. I'd say I used the conversation that I've had and thought about that throughout the training sessions on normal days, thinking about how to better it, rather than just sort of ignoring everyone until the next game and hoping that I get it right with no sort of work ethic or no sort of conversation with anyone, and just expecting it to get right just based off my own body, without sort of putting any work towards it. I'd say my relationship all over would be definitely probably the highest it's ever been since probably signing for Leicester. Since not playing at Leicester anymore, I say I was kind of going on the downward slope, kind of sort of facing fear within myself, thinking about where to go and what to do. So I feel like since from week 1 to week 12, just obviously me getting signed to a new club and sort of hitting the ground running, where I was sort of starting off the bench, and now after the 3 weeks of the session, I'm starting every game now, and I'm continuing to do that after week 12, and sort of just, and I still obviously setting myself more and more goals. But when I really look back at it, from the first week, I wasn't at any club, and now I'm sort of thinking I'm starting, and now I'm trying to see how many more goals I can add to my collection. But if I really just look back on it and appreciate the fact that I wasn't at a club 12 weeks ago, and to now where I'm thinking, right now I'm starting every week, what's the next step kind of thing. I'm always setting myself new goals at the end of the week. So yeah, I feel like it's really benefited me, and I feel like I can see that within myself, and yeah, I'd say definitely just sort of taking a step back and realizing myself, like realizing your self worth, and sort of having that conversation within yourself, as well as opening it out to people rather than sort of having self doubt. So I'd say definitely having that discipline. I'd say discipline is what definitely one of them. Uh, say another thing would be sort of I say discipline, yeah, but I say sort of giving that time to yourself, like not sort of just stepping back and sort of realizing the situation that you're in and thinking about how can I get myself out of it, rather than sort of beating yourself up about it. So I'd say sort of like having an open mind. I'd definitely say that. So I say discipline, having an open mind, and sort of yeah, sort of having that. I'd say you need a certain amount of um I'd say mentality as well. I'd say you need a certain like a mental side of football is probably the biggest downfall for a lot of players. So I'd say all three of those things. I say your mentality and your discipline is probably the main things that can sort of hinder you as a footballer, aside from your ability. I feel like those can be the two things that can sort of break a player or make a player. So I'd say yeah, those are the three things. I recommend it to other players. Just in terms of sort of when you're a player thinking about games and having constant training sessions, you're not really having that time to sort of think about the mental aspect of the game. You're kind of just thinking about the next session. But if you take aside having the right mental space and being in the right, having that right calmness before games and having that right instinct before games and sort of thinking about sort of replaying a goal that you're trying to score in your head and things like that, and obviously having a person to help you set those individual goals and having those conversations where sort of a person might know you better than yourself at some point and sort of give you the right advice, because it's not like Myles wasn't a professional himself and going through the same things that a lot of players have had. Is someone that's actually lived it and has played football for more years than I have, and a lot of players have played in that professional aspect. So it's kind of like it's not like it's just a random person I was talking to. I felt like I'm talking to someone that kind of relate to what I've been through, and sort of we're just going through each other's stories, and it helps you think like right. So you kind of like I don't really have to say too much. You kind of understand the feeling that a lot of footballers go through week in week out, and sort of having those same thoughts and sort of having those memories. And I feel like it was kind of just it was just batting off each other, because as a footballer to have someone that's another footballer that understands the way that I was feeling was kind of hard to have it with a normal person or a normal sort of mentor or someone like that. So having someone that's actually played the game and had those thoughts and had the same thing that I was going through as a footballer, having rejection and things like that, having someone that relates to it was a lot more easier to talk to and sort of easy going. Just having those conversations with someone that's obviously been there and done it. So it was easy to sort of have that conversation with him. My final message to Miles would sort of be just like a thank you, because obviously realizing where I was from the first week, it would have been tough to sort of get a better understanding of me, as I was quite reluctant to have that conversation. So I just say like appreciating like just taking the time to sort of understand me as a person rather than just like sort of having a first impression and sort of and guessing, but he actually took time to understand me as a player and as a person. So, say a lot of people would have just sort of maybe just thought, no, he's not interested, and sort of brush it under the mat and just move on. But I feel like Miles really like brought it out of me more than I would have for myself. So I'd say the fact that someone like kind of wanted something so much for me more than I did as my own player. It's kind of like it's mind blowing to think someone else who's sort of got their own career going on to want to help someone else's career as much as he did is kind of like it's very rare in this world for someone to just be that generous, putting sort of me before a lot of other people within themselves. So I'd say yeah, just very appreciative of like the 12 weeks, and obviously finding Miles helped me find a club, so things like that, just like crazy things that's probably outside of the sessions. I feel like we've had calls outside of the session that's probably helped us and benefited me more. Like sort of having a conversation after games and things like that off the bat, like off the cuff conversations that you can have with him, rather than just seeing him as a person. I sort of see him as like a friend or a brother. The conversation that we'd have, because it was sort of off the bat, and it wasn't really anything going behind it. I kind of just he just wanted to hear how I was getting on and see the progress that I made, rather than just waiting for the session on a Thursday or weekly. We sort of talk most days to sort of see how I was getting on and see things like that, because it was more like a genuine care rather than just a session kind of thing. Because many of the times that we spoke, it would be on WhatsApp or things like this, where like it wouldn't have to be part of that. It was just because he's just solely as a person wanted to know how I was getting on and how I was doing, which is quite unheard of for a lot of people that do sessions elsewhere. Maybe I sort of kind of get things that obviously him being a footballer and understanding what I was as a person, I say it's very different to anything that I've come across before.